Welcome to the IRS Solution Attorney Show. If you have problems with the IRS, don't focus on the negative, focus on the solutions. With the IRS Solution Attorney, Darrin T. Mish. For over 15 years, he's been helping taxpayers with IRS problems reclaim their lives and their financial stability. Now, here's your host of the IRS Solution Attorney Show, Darrin T. Mish.
Good morning. This is the IRS Solution Attorney, Darrin T. Mish.
And I'm your co-host, Katrina Madewell. Thanks for joining us today.
I never realized how hard doing live radio was until just this moment this morning.
When you're fumbling around with your iPad and trying to figure out how to get it up here and make it go live, and the intro music starts playing, and you're like, wait a minute.
Literally trying to do a Facebook post, trying to turn on Facebook Live on two devices, trying to remember that I need audio in order to go live, trying to get the headphones on my head, and all of that just happened. So, good morning.
Like T-minus 10 seconds and counting.
I think it was more like T plus 5 seconds. But anyway,
like
we're
that.
Here.
We got there.
We're here.
Welcome to the show.
Hit the clear button on the phone that you just bumped. There we go. Well, no. Get that light off right there.
Did I do it? No.
There you go.
Okay.
Now we can have folks call us at
818-888-404-1010. We're here, 888-404-1010. That sounded so weird with the one in there, didn't it?
I met with a gentleman yesterday who came into the office for a consult with a tax problem. Tax problem's been around, plus more than 10 years. And he's been dealing with this thing since 1991. And he was a fan of the show, which I think is extraordinarily cool. And the one thing that he said is we don't say the office phone number enough.
Yes,
so,
we don't say the office phone number enough, so say it.
So I was like, well, yeah, Katrina is the one that remembers to say the office phone.
He threw Katrina under the bus. He said it's all Katrina's
No,
fault.
actually, to the contrary, I was giving you the credit for ever saying it at all.
Oh, ever saying it? Okay.
He was driving around in his work truck, and he was like, say the phone number, and sure to true to form, Katrina said the phone number. So the phone number at the office is 888-GET-MISH. That's 888-GET-MISH. 888-438-6474. At my law firm,
he was looking for you.
Actually, absolutely was. And at my law firm, what we do is we help people who have problems with the IRS. And here on the show, we talk about IRS problems and how to solve them, because I'm not just about getting the fee. I'm not just about getting the client. I'm really here to help. And it's sincere. It's not an act. I don't think I could do this show for a year and a half. And
you have to be passionate about what you do.
Yeah, I was sharing with this gentleman that, and I'm not asking for sympathy here, okay? But after a 2-hour drive in the morning to get here, through traffic and all that, I'm not always like in the most chipper of moods. And sometimes I'm saying to myself, my self-talk is not really that great on these occasions. It's, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this? And the real answer is,
why are you here?
The real answer is, I'm here because I want to help people who have tax problems. And it's a big deal to them. It's usually the biggest problem that they have in their life. And it's oftentimes the catalyst to a lot of other problems that are going on in their lives. And so I'm here. I'm passionate about that.
You can only reach so far. So, this is a great station. We love Beasley. We love being here at Money Talk 1010. You can catch us at 10:10 a.m. And if you haven't popped on over yet to 103.1 FM, you can pick us up on the FM station too. If you got HD radio in your car, we're on 99.5 HD too. And usually we're streaming live on Facebook, but we've had some challenges. And
it's the Wi-Fi.
The internet
every time we try and use the in-house Wi-Fi here, we have problems with the Facebook live stream. That's not really that entertaining on radio. So today we're going to talk about...
We do have some pretty cool stuff lined up for today.
Something that is near and dear to my heart, and it's the Taxpayer Bill of Rights.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about this one.
So as taxpayers, as U.S. citizens and permanent residents, people who have to pay taxes in the United States, we actually have rights, which is amazing, because when we typically think of the IRS, if you don't have a lot of experience with them, you're thinking that you don't have any rights. They can just run over you. They can just say you owe a bunch of money, and they don't have to follow any rules. And
well, think about it. You feel like you're fighting the big dog, right? Like, who wants to take on that fight other than you? Nobody I know.
Exactly. It's just we don't always take them on in a confrontational, adversarial way, but we do strongly advocate for our clients. So that's what we're here for.
And so it's interesting. I keep prompting Darrin, and asking him, and at some point we will. I'm sure nobody really wants to talk about this. I don't think anybody wants to brag that they had an IRS problem, and it's not even that. But I'm really hoping that one of your clients one day will say, you know what? I'm not going to say my name, but I'll go on the air. I'll say what my problem was, and then I will basically share my story. And so that's what I'm hoping, that we have some of your clients that after it's all done, they can talk about the beginning, their emotions, all that stuff, and then where they landed. Because it's one thing to hear it from you, it's another thing to hear it from your client.
Yeah, I feel like a broken record up here talking about, people who have tax problems that are unhappy and whatnot. But I had a client come in 2 weeks ago, week before last, and he was, we talked, and I had forgotten what the deal was on his case. It saved him a lot of money. And he indicated to me that, yeah, he'd definitely come on live on the show. I just have to get with him. I just have to ask him. In fact, we could put him on the spot. We could
Is he done?
him. Yeah, we could call him during a break, and we could see if we can get him on.
Okay. Pat, we got some homework for you. We'll do that. All right. So we probably should jump into the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. And if you're streaming live, we want to apologize because the Wi-Fi is not the best. We are trying to get it reconnected, and we will get it reconnected. But let's jump in, Darrin. Let's talk about the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. And why did we pick this topic anyway?
Well, it's because people don't think they have any rights. We're kind of fresh off of the filing season here, and for some people that was a stressful deal, and for some people it was no stress at all because either they were getting a refund and their returns were really easy, or because they just don't bother to file. There's those two. And so I thought we would talk about, this is the Thursday after the filing deadline, just barely. And I thought we'd talk about the Taxpayer Bill of Rights because you do have rights. And there are things that we need to, that you need to know. Just, I think, and
there should be.
I think as a U.S. citizen, as an American, you just need to know some of your rights, because if we don't know our rights and we don't enforce them, if we don't use them, then we have politicians who are more than willing to take them away.
You are so right about that. You are so right about that. And, some of those are more controversial than the others. And I think when it comes to the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, a lot of people probably don't give it that much thought. So they're probably not that passionate as they might be for the Second Amendment.
So just like the Bill of Rights in the Constitution, there's actually 10 of them. And the first is the right to be informed. Now, we're going to talk about the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. I'm not going to say that the IRS follows them necessarily. And this is one that I don't think they follow very well at all. You have the right to be informed. So, taxpayers have the right to know what they need to do to comply with the tax laws. Now, by a raise of hands, who out there thinks that they know what they have to do to comply with the tax laws? Okay, so nobody's raising their hands. I didn't raise my hand. I don't think it's very clear in all cases, like what we have to do to comply with the tax laws.
And isn't that the problem, that you have attorneys or people writing that, and I think sometimes they leave it vague just so that attorneys can fight about this stuff. Would you agree with that?
Yeah,
stuff?
I think part of the problem that we have is that the income tax passed in 1913, and ever since 1913, we've added and subtracted and added and added and added and added and added. And so we really have a system that's just really cumbersome that nobody can really easily comply with.
Yeah.
And so that's where we're at. But
it would be like a real estate contract, and you just added all these addendums over time, and then eventually you don't even know where you're at.
So I don't know if I ever told you this stat. This is a stat that I've heard, that the tax code is so voluminous that if you spent 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, reading the tax code, just reading it, it would take you 80 years. So anybody who said, I have read the tax code from cover to cover,
they've skimmed through the tax code. There's no way.
Yeah, not possible, because, you can't even start reading at that level until you're 10, 15 years old?
At least.
So, yeah, I don't think
I don't even know any kid that age would want to read it.
No, I mean, that's just a silly example.
Yeah, but but that's the whole point, right? Yeah, it's not possible.
Yeah, actually, exactly. So, you're entitled to clear explanation of the laws and IRS procedures in all tax forms, instructions, publications, notices, and correspondence. You have the right to be informed of IRS decisions about your tax accounts and to receive clear explanations of the outcomes. Now, I don't think the IRS is complying with any of this. I mean, quite frankly.
So what is the expectation? Generally, what do you see? What do you think is reason? It's the right to be informed. I'm sure you can argue what that timeline should be, in the IRS probably has their own timeline, but what is that realistically, and what should it be? So
we have the right to be informed as taxpayers. And so the way the IRS interprets this, and I don't usually bash the IRS the whole show.
No, we don't. But it's a curious question.
Yeah, we don't normally bash the IRS the whole show, but I'm about to bash them. They issue notices and letters that are just almost nonsensical. I mean, I'm in this business and I do this all day, every single day, and I can, for the most part, understand what's going on in a taxpayer's account based on the correspondence that they've received, but taxpayers can't. It's just there's two reasons too. One is that the language is just crazy. It's just not clear or concise, and the other reason is when you have a tax problem, you're not thinking clearly. Not when it comes to that.
So they're informing them, they're sending them letters. It's just that the letters are so ridden with IRS jargon that they don't know how to follow them. Is that what you're saying?
Well, they don't even
That's
know what
I'm
they
hearing.
mean. They literally do not know what they mean because just like in lots of areas of our life, they use a special vocabulary, right? Lawyers are famous for that. We have, and realtors too, we have special vocabulary that we use,
Yes.
and the IRS does too. And so once you're immersed in this world like I am, then you understand what that vocabulary means. But if you're just Joe Blow,
Yeah.
regular guy,
You don't speak that
You don't
language.
speak that language, and it's not your fault. You shouldn't speak that language.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. So what's realistic? Just whenever they feel like sending you a letter? Is that what it is?
Well, I guess for this particular point, this is an academic discussion. You have the right to be informed. It works better with one-on-one than it does taxpayer to IRS as a whole.
Okay, so next one. This is a real kicker, and we're going to get to it after the break, but it's the right to quality service. That's fabulous.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we'll talk about this when we come back after the break. 888-404-1010. We'll be back in a minute.
Are you suffering from IRS problems? Do you owe back taxes you can't pay? Is your paycheck or bank account being levied? Or maybe you haven't filed tax returns in years and simply don't know what to do. This is Darrin T. Mish to tell you that if you're tired of IRS problems hanging over your head and are ready for a fresh start, we may be able to help. Call the law offices of Darrin T. Mish at 888-GET-MISH, 888-GET-MISH. I can help you file old tax returns, work to release tax liens or stop wage levies, even negotiate deals to pay off back taxes at a discount, sometimes for pennies on the dollar. Hey, let's face it, these days it's not hard to get into tax trouble. A divorce, failed business, health problems, you name it. The point is, IRS problems may be solved if you're willing to take the first step. Call for a free consultation at 888-GET-MISH. That's 888-438-6474. Or go to the web at getirshelp.com, because the one sure thing is, IRS problems don't solve themselves. So get Mish. 888-438-6474. Principal Office, Tampa.
I just miss the farm talk. The planting season is here. It's spring.
No.
Turtle crossing
We
time.
didn't talk about chickens or farms or nothing.
Don't talk about turtles laying eggs.
We have got to talk about the Taxpayer Bill of Rights today, Pat. That is on the agenda.
So welcome back to the IRS Solution Attorney Show. I am the IRS Solution Attorney, Darrin T. Mish.
And a farmer.
And I'm your co-host, Katrina Madewell. That's Pat George, the crazy one back there on the board that always keeps the show alive. And if you missed the earlier part of the show, we were discussing you can get Darrin at 888-GET-MISH. That's
438-6474, 888-438-6474.
And the first one, you have the right to be informed, which that was so fun. If you missed it, catch it on a podcast. You can hop on over to Get IRS Help or the IRS Solution Attorney and find Darrin Mish there and all the prior shows.
Yeah, don't forget the podcast, like you said, or we also have the app. You can download the app from both stores, Google and Apple as well, and all the shows are there as well. So if you have a tax problem and you want to drink from a fire hose, that's
Yes.
the place to do it. And I get calls on a regular basis that say,
There's
I was
so
up all
much
night last
fun.
night listening or watching you. I watched 7 hours of video because I couldn't sleep. And I was thinking, wow, I thought I was good at putting people to sleep.
Welcome
but-
to the office. So the second point, which is really funny, and we kind of snickered about this before the break, but this is in the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, but you have the right to quality service.
Yeah. So they do call it the Internal Revenue Service.
You know what I think about, like, when I just look at this and it says the right to quality service? I want to ask them, so what does quality service mean to you?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to leave that at service. Quality service means something different to everyone. So I'll tell you a short story is that, there's little IRS offices all over the place. There's one, we've talked about this all the time. The St. Pete office is just a stone's throw from here. It's actually in the same sort of looking building as we're in right now. And there's one in Tampa and Lakeland and, all over Ocala. And every kind of town of any size has an IRS office in it. And those used to be called taxpayer assistance centers because they would provide taxpayer assistance. That was an example where the government actually named it what it was. And so a few years back, there was a memo that came out, real official memo from the Internal Revenue Service in D.C., and they said, in the interest of providing better quality service, we have decided to eliminate in-person service at our taxpayer assistance centers. Now, how does that make any sense? And how does that provide quality service to where you can't walk in and talk to somebody face to face? You have to call a toll-free number and you have to wait on hold for hours, and you may get what they call a courtesy disconnect in the process, which means after you've waited on hold for a couple hours, they've decided you've just waited long enough, and so they're going to terminate the call and you can start all over. And then you get these letters from the IRS that say you must call by some date in the future. It's usually, a week or 10 days. You must call us within a week or 10 days, and then you can't get through.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not quality service.
Who were some of the people that you saw in those offices, which, by the way, they don't even really have those anymore, right? They don't take walk-in appointments, any of them anymore, do they?
I don't know that any of them do take walk-in appointments. I know unless you have an appointment, like, for example, your case is large enough, it's been assigned to a revenue officer, and the revenue officer said, hey, come on down here on Monday morning at 9, and we'll sit down and talk about it. But that's not taxpayer assistance, which is what we're talking about. Like, hey, I've got some questions on my tax stuff. Can you help me? No, they do not provide that, as far as I know, at all. I think that all taxpayer assistance and that, in terms of that, like questions about tax returns and stuff like that, are handled by the toll-free number, or you have to pay for it. I think the mortgage people probably just ran them out. Because, Florida's the high fraud state. They have to get their signed, stamped transcripts. And so they would literally take their returns down to the IRS and get them stamped so that they could get them back to underwriting and close on time. Okay. So in a brief defense of the IRS, that service is still available. Because I did that last summer. I had that situation where I was going through a mortgage process to get the farm, and we had to go through that process. We had to go have them time stamped and all that. So I guess that means we didn't run them off. That's good. I didn't need an appointment for that, but I did have to talk my way past the two armed guards at the door. It's a fight, and those guys are all right, I guess. They're just trying to do their job. They're trying to keep the employees inside safe. It's interesting. I had one lady once that she was literally going through a divorce. And it was a contingency on the contract because title affects, marital status affects title in the state of Florida. And so she got the divorce done. It was all finalized. And this was like the last thing. And she went to the IRS office and they were like, sorry, we can't help you with this. And she's like, no, you don't understand. I went through a divorce. I did this. I got everything else done. I've been waiting. I am not leaving here until somebody helps me. She was so adamant about it. She got what she came in for. Yeah. Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear that she talked her way past them as well. So you can get some quality service, but you got to push for it. So let me read the rest of this description, right out of the Taxpayer Bill of Rights when it comes to the right to quality service. So the publication says, taxpayers have the right to receive prompt, courteous, and professional assistance in their dealings with the IRS, to be spoken to in a way they can easily understand, to receive clear and easily understandable communications from the IRS, and to speak to a supervisor about inadequate service. So another real brief story. I was handling the appeal of an offer in compromise recently, I would say within the past month, and I'm dealing with a settlement officer. And the settlement officer is essentially the appeals officer, handling the case, who ultimately was making the decision. And she was being really rude and unprofessional. This is not common at that level of employee at all, that they would act like that. And she was saying things to me like, you lose. I don't know what we're even talking about here. You lose. She was being really nasty. And I was not participating in that, even though it was really tempting, to like escalate and to be ruder than she was. As that brief fleeting moment was running through my head, I was like, okay, but that's not going to, it might feel good temporarily, but in the long run, it's going to be bad. So I very calmly asked to speak to her supervisor, which you have the right to in this, and the right to quality service. She skipped the first part of that. You must talk to somebody. And lo and behold, and she was nasty as I was asking for the supervisor's name and number. And I wasn't even being nasty about it. I was like, look, you and I are not communicating, so I just want to talk to somebody else that might understand where I'm coming from. And then if the decision's final, then the decision's final, And she called back within about an hour and said the supervisor had indicated to her to like deal with me and that my argument had some weight, and we ultimately won that case. So the point of that story is, what do you think the odds are of Joe Blow, regular guy, in that situation prevailing? I mean, it was actually intimidating somewhat to me from the standpoint of, not that she was scaring me or anything, and that's not what I'm saying, but I wasn't thinking I was going to win. I was right all the time. I was right. What to say. Yeah, I was absolutely right. My theory was, spot on, exactly correct. And here was somebody who had a training issue that hadn't been trained with regard to that one thing that I was talking about, and decided that being unprofessional was the way to go. And it could be she just was having a bad day or whatever. Now, the irony is I have another case coming up with that same person.
Oh, that'll be fun.
So the good thing about that the good thing about that is like, I didn't like, hit her with a barrage of negativity back. I was just kind of like, look, you and I are not communicating. I don't know what the problem is. It's, I'm not taking this personal. You don't need to take it personal either. So
your business could be similar like ours, where you get a lot of just, I hate to say pig-headed people, but people that are kind of stubborn, like they want their way on both sides. And sometimes that can be a fight, like agents, right? But you never know when you're going to run into that person again. Yeah,
that's the thing. And lawyers don't really always realize this either and I told this to a revenue officer recently. I've been here in this town for 20 years practicing law, 18 of the years doing, actually more than 20 years practicing, but 18 years doing this IRS work. And I'm going to be here another 20, easy. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not going to go around burning bridges if I can help it. Now, there are some that you just got to do it. This particular revenue officer lied to me, straight up lied to my face, levied a client's bank account over $1,500 when he said he wasn't going to do it. And we were prepared to write the check, and that just really upset me. So I made sure that revenue officer knew where I was coming from. From now on, you and I, every case we're going to have is going to be hard because, you've shown that.
Well, he didn't do what he said he was going to do.
Yeah,
you've shown that's just integrity at any level.
Yeah, well, I probably said too much on that. So,
but it is what it is. And you can experience that anywhere in life. I think anybody would agree with that.
Yeah. So the third one is the right to pay no more than the correct amount of tax. And, taxpayers have the right to pay only the amount of tax legally due, including interest and penalties, and to have the IRS apply all of the tax payments properly. This is another thing that we have problems with, isn't it?
So they can't go to somebody like Darrin and go, you know what? You know too much about this stuff. We want you to pay more in taxes.
No, goodness gracious. Let's hope not. But
I'm just teasing.
I think where we have problems with the right to pay more than the correct amount of tax is it's the correct amount of tax is sort of a nebulous concept, right? When it takes you 80 years to read the tax code, whose opinion of the correct amount of tax are we talking about?
Well, here's the thing. It's just like attorneys and CPAs. You can go to one or the other and get a different opinion, especially when the tax code's 80 pages. So there's a possibility that one CPA could say, yeah, you can write this off, while another one's like, no, that plan's too aggressive.
Yeah, there's a study where 50 CPAs and taxpayers took the same fact pattern, and it was medium in complexity, and they were asked to prepare a tax return, and they got 50 different answers. So how's that a system that makes any sense? It's irrational.
But that's the point. So, it's pretty big, right? Because it just says the right to pay no more than the correct amount of tax. So that's arguable, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to argue about that in the context of audits a lot, aren't we?
For sure. Yes, without a doubt. The fourth one, just to kind of get you guys to the next break, is the right to challenge the IRS's position and be heard. And I think this is probably your favorite one on the whole list, Darrin. You can get Darrin at 888-GET-MISH. That's his off-air number, 888-GET-MISH. We'll be back in just a minute.
Welcome back to the IRS Solution Attorney Show. I am the IRS Solution Attorney,
Mr. Darrin T. Mish, and I'm your co-host, Katrina Madewell. Were you going to spit that out? I want to make sure people know how to get you at 888-GET-MISH.
We have so many technological challenges today. Like I got divided attention.
He's so distracted today. It's not funny.
So today we're talking about the taxpayer Bill of Rights.
Taxpayer? Did you really just say that?
Well, if you have a tax problem, you definitely need some Bayer aspirin. So
yes. All right, so just to run through these real quick, and if you missed the earlier part of the show, please catch it in its entirety, because we did talk about these in depth, serious, and some fun in between. But it's the right to be informed, the right to quality service, the right to pay no more than the correct amount, and number 4, I'm sure you can't wait to talk about this one, Darrin.
It's the right to challenge the IRS's position and to be heard. A lot of people don't take advantage of this, right? So they think, well, the IRS says I owe X amount of money. That I disagree. I think that's really terrible, but I don't know what to do about it. So
read the part of it and then talk about what it means, like interpret it in lay terms.
Okay, so taxpayers have the right to raise objections and provide additional documentation in response to formal IRS actions or proposed actions, to expect that the IRS will consider their timely objections and documentation promptly and fairly, and to receive a response if the IRS does not agree with their position. Now, unfortunately, this show, because we're talking about the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, this show has been a bit of an IRS bashing session this episode, and we don't do that a whole lot. But, Yeah, they're not doing a great job at this. I mean,
But it says the right to be heard. So they just consider that as basically written correspondence? Like that's
in
it?
some instances, if you have a revenue officer, you're going to be heard. He's not going to hear a lot of what you say, but he's going to pay lip service to hearing you. I'll give you an example. A lot of times, especially in the context of having a revenue officer, taxpayer will be compliant, meaning they're current. They don't have any missing returns, and they've provided their financials, and their financials show an ability to pay of some amount. And taxpayers say, okay, I'm tired of dealing with you. No offense, Mr. Revenue Officer, but I just want to get into an installment agreement and put this behind me, because if I'm in an installment agreement and I'm staying current, then eventually this will be over. Mm-hmm. And so when you formally request an installment agreement, the IRS has to formally accept it or reject it. And if they reject it, you have the right to appeal it.
Do they kind of drag things out?
Gosh, there are some revenue officers in this area, and I hope they're listening. Man, they do not know when to stop asking questions. It's not like they're uncovering the big secret. There is no big secret. These are just regular folks that are trying to run a business, trying to employ people, and maybe they owe a couple $100,000, but there's 8 years left on the collection statute of limitations. So there's 8 years left to collect the money. It's $200,000. We want to pay $3,000 or $4,000 a month. There's plenty of evidence that they can do that, but not a lot more than that. And they just want to keep asking questions. And it's a little bit frustrating for the taxpayer, I'm sure. It's frustrating for me.
Yeah, and if they're willing to cooperate and pay, I just don't know why it's such a big issue, especially when they're saying they're so bogged down with this kind of stuff.
The mentality of a government employee is sort of interesting. And I'm not going to go too far into that. But some people...
Oh, please do, because my husband works for the government and he's listening. Please do.
We know. We actually have evidence that Chris is listening. Years ago, I was a public defender for a couple of years, and big shout out to the PDs out there. Hardest job in the law. I mean, bar none. And clients hate you. The judges hate you. The state attorneys hate you. Everybody
hate you.
Everybody hates you. And just really hard job. So a lot of times in the government employees, they're either they just don't want to do any work at all. Sometimes they burn out. They've been there forever, and they're just like kind of biding their time, or they think their job is like the most important function in the government. Like they, without them, we cannot, soldier on. And so I think I'm in thin ice right here, but I think that the correct balance is somewhere right in the middle of that. Do the work, but you're not like,
the one,
if the cog that if it's missing, the government comes crashing down. I mean, like, just follow the rules, be a human, and it'll all work out better. So yeah, you have a right to challenge the IRS position on things. And for the most part, when I deal with people, taxpayers who owe money to the IRS, we do lots and lots and lots of appeals. Almost everything that the IRS does can be appealed at some level. I don't have a lot of time to go into that because we've done whole shows on appeals. But yeah, you have the right to appeal. You have to pay attention to your mail. I'm going to make this point, okay? If you're a taxpayer and you're getting mail from the IRS, do not throw it on the table and leave it unopened. If it comes certified, I'm pleading with you. I'm imploring you, open the mail, because there are things that are coming in the mail certified to you with deadlines that really can't be fixed.
And I think any of it, like I just got a letter from the IRS, and I got to be honest, I barely looked at it. I meant to bring it with me so you could look at it. And I thought we might talk about it on air, but it was something simple like, hey, we changed your address. And I don't know if I needed to do anything else.
Back up to right number one, the right to be informed, or the right to quality service to be communicated with in a clear and concise manner. You're a very smart, educated person, lots of business experience, and you get this letter and you're like, I don't even know what that means.
Like, I don't even want to read it. It's just like...
That's a perfect example. Nobody wants to read the mail from the IRS, but I'm telling you, open it. Open it, because
see if it looks urgent.
Yeah, if it's the scarier it is, the more likely it is you should call me at 888-GET-MISH. That's 888-438-6474.
That's a pretty good point. Well taken. Well taken. Okay, so what does number 6 mean? The right to finality. That doesn't even make any sense.
Let's back up and go to number 5. You have the right to appeal an IRS decision in an independent form. So
I thought you do want to talk about appeals.
No, that's okay. We can talk about appeals. I just meant we weren't going to talk about it for 15 minutes. So taxpayers are entitled to a fair and impartial administrative appeal of most IRS decisions, including many penalties, and have the right to receive a written response regarding the Office of Appeals decision. Taxpayers generally have the right to take their case to court. I don't know about that last part at all.
Does that really ever happen?
Yeah, only in the assessment context. So they're saying, okay, you've been audited, right? And you can appeal the audit. And then if you disagree with the appeal of the audit, then you can go to tax court. Yes, you have that right. Absolutely, categorically. However, let's say you do an offer in compromise. You're trying to make a deal to settle for less with the IRS. By and large, once it's rejected and then it goes to the Office of Appeals, you don't have a right to go to court. It just stops at appeals. The thing that's interesting is the Office of IRS Appeals is allegedly independent. Okay. First of all, it's sort of nonsensical. They definitely work for the Internal Revenue Service in Internal Revenue Service buildings with Internal
that doesn't
Revenue
make any
Services,
sense at all.
business cards, paychecks, all that. But
Paychecks.
But, settlement officers who are the appeals officers who handle collection appeals, which is really where I spend most of my time, is collection matters, meaning my taxpayers owe the money or arguably owe the money, and taxpayer can't afford to pay it or doesn't want to pay it or whatever. Those settlement officers come from the field. They come from revenue officers.
So that's a promotion?
Yeah, it's a promotion. I recently heard or found out that there's not even a need, there's no requirement that a college degree be required to become a settlement officer.
Isn't that fun?
That's a little scary. I'm not putting anybody down here, and a college degree is not necessarily be all end all. Lots of people I know have many friends who don't have college diplomas, and they're millionaires.
But you just don't know who you're arguing with on the other side that's working for the IRS.
Yeah, that's the challenge, right? It's like how do you communicate with them if there's not sort of a baseline of knowledge that's presumed?
Is there a certain time period they have to do that?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a certain number of years in service and whatnot. And ironically, the woman who told me that she doesn't have a college degree yet, she's a settlement officer, was one of the best settlement officers I've ever worked with.
There you
go.
So
it's not a correlation. I just thought I'd mention it. It's interesting that these people are making not really life and death
She's
decisions. She's
probably doing a better job than the ones that have the college degree.
Well, I actually, she's out in Fresno, California, and I pretty much offered her a job. I says, okay, so how long for you, before you retire? And she says, like 4 or 5 years. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to be here, and I want you to write my name and number down, and I want you to call me for a job when that time comes.
She might just call
I hope
you
she
out of the
does.
blue.
I hope she does, because she needs to come over from the dark side, come over to the side of light and glory, and help people for a change.
I had a curious question. You said they could appeal it in tax court, but where is tax court? Like, is there one tax court or are they all over?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think we've really ever talked about it.
We've never talked
done a show
about
on tax
that.
court. So,
that's why I'm asking.
Matt, if you're listening, we need to do a show on the tax court. So tax court is interesting. There's not a tax court building. People don't know that. Like, everybody kind of thinks,
where and how is tax court?
Yeah, everybody kind of thinks, well, we got to go to DC if we're going to go to tax court. We assume that there's a building somewhere in DC because there's like government buildings everywhere.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
But the tax court is actually a traveling circuit court, which means they hold court at various federal courthouses throughout the country. I don't know the exact number, like 100.
So they travel?
I've never heard of that. Those poor guys, man, they're on the road all the time. So what happens is they'll come to Tampa, for example, maybe twice a year. And they'll have a docket on a Monday morning, and that docket will have 300 cases, 500 cases, something like that.
They have to get through that many?
And they're expected to try. They have a week. They're here for a week. And they're expected to try that entire docket. They're expected to, let me change the word. They're expected to dispose of that entire docket during that Monday morning session.
That's about 60 cases a day.
Plus the other 4 days. So what happens is it's just like setting a criminal case for trial. Same thing happens. You're a criminal defense lawyer, and you set a case for trial, and you show up on Monday morning, and what happens is the circuit court judge in this case would have 400 cases set for trial. That's his trial week. You have 1 week a month, typically. And what happens is that's when all the deals get cut. That's the bottom line. Mm-hmm. There's artificial time pressure, and there's pressure on both sides, and that's when the deals get cut. Same thing happens in tax court.
So 300 cases might get knocked down to what?
3.
Really?
5. Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe they can do 4 days worth of half-day trials.
So 8. The judge and attorneys that travel in this tax court, I imagine the local and state laws don't matter. They're technically just following federal tax law. Is that right?
Yeah, for the most part. It's, tax matters are matters of federal law. And so state and local law won't come into account. They're not trying these cases in state courthouses. They're trying them in federal courthouses. So there's a federal courthouse in downtown Tampa. Big, tall building.
Interesting. Okay. Keep going. I want to run out of time.
It's on Florida Avenue.
But it was just an interesting topic we've never talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. So then you have the right to finality. So taxpayers have the right to know the maximum amount of time they have to challenge the IRS's position, as well as the maximum amount of time the IRS has to audit a particular tax year or collect a tax debt. Taxpayers have the right to know when the IRS has finished an audit. Okay, not followed. Like, not typically. So,
when is that? Like, how long does it take them to finish an audit? And
they have the right to know this stuff. It's not routinely, indicated to anybody.
So this would be some of the things that you fight. Like if they haven't responded or sent correspondence like they should to communicate what's going on, then you challenge this Bill of Rights.
Yeah. And what's funny is it's just like in real life. Okay. How often are you going to win an argument? That's against the First Amendment. It's like, that's not how it works.
Yeah. Good luck
it should,
arguing the
but it's not really how it
tax
works.
code.
So when we come back, we're going to try and get through the last,
We will get through the last 4. We will.
And then
even if it's quick.
We have a pretty cool train wreck of the week.
All right. If you want to get Darrin, you can catch him at his off-air number, which is 888-GET-MISH, 888-GET-MISH.
That's 888-438-6474, 888-438-6474. Visit the website at getirshelp.com.
And if you have a question, it probably would be best to call back there and talk to Pat George today, and we'll try and squeeze it in. 888-404-1010. Pat's back there to take your call live and answer a question you have on there. 888-404-1010. Darrin's ready to shoot me because we have so much content, but we can do it. We'll be back. You're listening to the IRS Solution Attorney. Back in a minute.
Figured I better play one that Katrina would know. Let's see.
I do know this song.
I know you do. Got to jump right back into it here, huh?
And this was David Lee Roth
Van Halen.
before Sammy Hagar came
Definitely.
Right.
in. The chicken or the egg.
Welcome back to the IRS Solution Attorney Show. I am the IRS Solution Attorney, Darrin T. Mish.
And I'm your co-host, Katrina Madewell. And my version of Van Halen was more of Sammy Hagar. I'm just saying.
Jeez.
You're like ready to shoot me.
No, I didn't know you were that old, but that's good.
That's like saying she
That
likes
old?
new Coke over old Coke.
Right.
Well, the old Coke used to actually have Coke in it.
Well, I wasn't talking
And that was before my
I
time.
wasn't talking to old
It's
Coke.
Coca.
Yeah, that.
All right, so today we're talking about the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. We've gone through the first 6, and since we have about 3.5 minutes to get through the other 4, we're going to go real fast.
Run through the first 6 real quick.
The right to be informed, the right to quality service, the right to pay no more tax or no more than the correct amount of tax, the right to challenge the IRS's position and be heard, the right to appeal an IRS decision in an independent forum, the right to finality. Number 7 is the right to privacy. Basically, taxpayers have the right to expect that any IRS inquiry or examination or enforcement action will comply with the law and be no more intrusive than necessary. Okay, it's one of those things
So they
have trouble
can't
with
say
too.
something to anybody that would call.
Yeah, well, that falls right into the next one, which is number 8, the right to confidentiality. So the IRS cannot just blab, anything that's taxpayer confidential information, which remember when Donald Trump's tax return was leaked, if that had been by an IRS employee, and it may have been, we don't know, then that would definitely be a violation of a criminal statute, and that person should and could go to prison, because that's one of the things that I think is good about our tax system is that IRS employees generally are very good about keeping taxpayers' confidential information confidential.
I was going to say, if I worked there, I wouldn't have any part of that. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's one of the 7 deadly sins. Another good show topic, the 7 deadly sins that IRS employees can commit to lose their jobs and or go to prison. So number 9 would be the right to retain representation, one that is near and dear to my heart. You have a right to have counsel. You have the right to have an accountant. You have the right to have a representative represent you before the IRS. This is, it's kind of obvious, right? People just sort of, well, duh, you have a right to an attorney. But no, it means more than that. You have the right to spend money on the representation in a priority over the IRS.
So they can't say, oh, you can't pay an attorney because you owe us taxes.
Exactly. And if they did, would you have any right to representation at all? No, you wouldn't, because they'd always say, well, you owe us money, and unless you have enough money to pay us and the lawyer, then, you don't get a lawyer. So
if we have that right, who would we call?
Well,
who do you call?
You would call 888-GET-MISH. That's 888-438-6474. The law offices of Darrin T. Mish, PA.
Yeah, that. Number 10 is the right to a fair and just tax system.
Okay, so let me read the
traveling
description
court.
here. The taxpayers have the right to expect the tax system to consider facts and circumstances that might affect, their situation. Does it happen? Not as well as it should. Bottom line. I think the IRS has a lot to work on with regard to complying with the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, and I hope they do.
That was all of the above, wasn't it? So we had a real quick tax question. Let's answer it just because we are past the filing deadline, right? We're past that. It wasn't April 15th. It was extended. But Alan wants to know, did he need to file an extension if he had a refund coming?
No, you don't. because if you have the real reason to file an extension is to prevent the late filing, penalty from occurring. And if you have a refund coming, then you don't have a late filing penalty, even if you file it very late. Remember, though, if you have a refund coming, you must file within 3 years or you forfeit the refund or any credit toward the refund. So that's sort of your timeline there. It can be kind of hairy, scary, though, because you got to be pretty sure you got a refund coming.
Yeah.
If you owe a little bit of money, you're going to have a big penalty for refiling. It's about that time. It's time for the IRS train wreck of the week. This is the segment of the show that I think is my favorite. It's the
train just crashed.
Yeah, it's where somebody came into the office and their situation was pretty much a train wreck. They owed a lot of money to the IRS, and after we worked on their case, then they came out smelling like a rose. So I just dealt with this gentleman yesterday, answered a question for him. I represented him a number of years ago. He owed about $396,897 to the IRS, so just a shy under $400,000. It had been a very long time coming. I mean, I think that was over a period of 8 years or so. And he was just on one of these treadmills where he was making money, but not enough money, and he was racking up big tax debt every single month. And he really didn't know what to do. The IRS was on his back. There was a revenue officer. They were, getting ready to seize stuff and really make his life miserable. At the same time, to add insult to injury, this poor guy was going through serious health conditions. He had I can't remember what the health condition was, but it was debilitating. And then he had a debilitating back problem too. And so it made it pretty much impossible for him to go and work the way he had been. And so we filed an offer in compromise, which is where you make a deal to settle for less, or at least you're proposing to make a deal to settle for less. And we really lowballed the IRS bad. I don't remember the exact amount we offered, but say $500 on $400,000, and lots of reasons for that. But we offered the $500 and it was rejected. Okay. The IRS came back and they were like, this is a full pay, that kind of thing. And we actually used the IRS Office of Appeals, and we appealed that decision on the denied or the rejected offer in compromise. And ultimately, we got that thing settled for $1,221. And I can really remember, it was really hard fought. It took a couple of years. And I can remember this client, when it came time to appeal, I mean, I remember him just reaching out to me and saying, Darrin, like, really, this is it. This is my last hope. Like, you got to come through for me, man. And I'm like, rest assured, I'm going to do my absolute best. And I do that for every client. But when somebody really says that, you're like, wow. I mean, it's really kind of heavy when somebody puts that much trust in you, So we worked really hard on it. We were able to demonstrate his inability to pay, but also a lot of these other physical problems with him. And we got it settled for $1,221. So $1,221 on $400,000 is a pretty good deal. The IRS has another taxpayer back in the system, and he's real happy. So
if you or someone has a tax problem or question, I would encourage you to call Darrin's office. Heather is there. The phone lines are open. She let us know at 888-GET-MISH.
That's 888-438-6474, 888-438-6474. You need to visit our website, too. If you just need a little bit more information, maybe you're a little shy, you can visit the website at getirshelp.com. You can certainly listen to our podcast, the IRS Solution Attorney. Download the app. That'd be my favorite thing you could do, short of a phone call, is download the app, the IRS Solution Attorney app, and listen to some of the stuff. Listen to us on the radio, maybe in your car on your commute. Yep. And you can learn a little bit about how we operate and what your rights are.
At 9 a.m. Eastern, we're always here, and we are streaming online. And looks like somebody had a question, and they got hit with some IRS fraud, I think, where they swiped the tax refund. We have talked about this before, and it's a hard thing, really low on the priority list, unfortunately. Yeah. Right, I think that's what it is, where they swipe the tax refund. It's a crazy thing. You actually have to file it with the federal. It's a federal thing. You have to file it with the FBI, and IRS gets involved.
So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll answer that question offline on Facebook Live. So make sure, if you're listening to the show or you want to listen to the show, 9 a.m. on Eastern, 10 a.m., or you can visit us on Facebook Live with the IRS Solution Attorney.
And call Darrin at 888-GET-MISH, 888-GET-MISH.
888-438-6474.
Thanks for joining us this week. For now.
For today, we're out.